You're listening to VoiceCast. Or at least, I think you still are. The signal's been acting strange all night. I'm watching the levels flicker, rise, then flatline for a few seconds. Static hums under my voice like it's breathing. I've run diagnostics 3 times. Nothing wrong on our end. But the air feels thick, like the pressure dropped. But the weather's calm. Too calm. If you're out there, send a ping. Email, text, anything. Just let me know someone's still hearing this. Earlier tonight, I stepped outside the studio to stretch my legs. I swear the streetlights flickered in unison. Not once, 3 times. And not the usual power hiccup. This was rhythmic, coordinated. I stood under one and heard a faint pulsing. Not mechanical, not electric. It sounded like wet breathing. There's also this weird metallic taste in the air. You know when lightning's about to strike? That kind of taste, but there's no storm, not even wind. Just stillness. And now I'm getting messages. Listeners writing and saying, clocks stopped at 2:17 a.m. exactly. Even battery-powered ones. Birds flying in spirals. Shadows not matching their sources. I know how this sounds. But something's happening, and not just locally. Calls are coming in from other states. Similar reports. I'll try to patch one through after this break. If there even is a break. Hold tight, folks. Don't touch that dial. I don't think it likes to be touched tonight. Okay, I'm back. Or maybe I never left. Hard to tell. I just got an email from a listener in Nebraska. They saw a flock of birds flying in perfect squares, like the geometry was guiding them. Not instinct. Another listener in Maine said the shadows of pedestrians were walking in the opposite direction of their bodies. Not the sun. The shadows. As if they were trying to leave. I checked the official channels. No AA is calling it a rare electromagnetic fluctuation. They're blaming it on solar activity. That's the default answer, isn't it? Solar flare, magnetic burst, space weather. But I've been covering this beat for years, and this isn't that. There's a story here, buried in press releases and controlled messaging. I can feel it under my skin. Someone sent me an image. A tree in their backyard has grown an extra trunk. Overnight. It's twisted, not from the ground, but split from the middle like it gave birth to itself. That can't happen. A trucker just called in. He was driving down Interstate 80 when he saw a billboard that read, "It already happened." No company name, no product, just white letters on black. He turned around 5 minutes later. Billboard gone. This doesn't feel like a freak coincidence anymore. It feels orchestrated. And if the powers that be are calling it nothing, then it's probably something. Keep your radios close. There's a pattern here, but I don't know if we're the ones making it or following it. Hang on, patching in a live call now. Caller ID says it's from the Hadron Research Complex. That's the collider, isn't it? You're on the air. Go ahead. Do not stop broadcasting. Who is this? There's not much time. My name is Dr. Vincent Dale. I worked on the containment interface for the collider. We were told it was theoretical, stable, but it's not. We crossed the wrong threshold. Threshold? What kind of threshold? We were trying to simulate a microscopic event horizon, a harmless black hole, a speck, a flicker, but it didn't act like one. It pulsed. It responded, like it was aware of the containment field. You're saying it responded? We didn't create a hole. We tore something open. It doesn't pull. It listens. It waits. Waits for what? We called it a singularity. We were wrong. It's not a hole, it's a mouth. A mouth? It speaks in form, not sound. That's why clocks are stopping. That's why geometry is folding. It's not physics anymore. It's interpretation. It's art. Alive. What can we do? Warn them. Warn everyone still listening. It's too late to stop it. But they need to know. They need to know it's not Vincent, Dr. Dale. We lost him. Just like that. Gone. His voice was shaking, but not from fear, from guilt. I don't know what they did at that facility, but something woke up, and I think it knows our names. Apologies, listeners. Something just happened. The lights cut out. Total darkness. For maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds? A minute? Time feels wrong. The backup generator kicked in, but the boards are sluggish. Audio lagging. Everything. Off. Just slightly. When the power dropped, I heard something. It wasn't silence. It was like whispering. Not in the room. In the signal. Underneath the static, something was talking. But not in a language I recognize. It was rhythmic. Intentional. Almost like breath counting backwards. Then this weird smell hit. Like burnt paper and ammonia and something else. Old water. The kind you'd smell in flooded basements. Memories that rot. Now, here's the part I can't explain. When the feed came back, my mic light was already on. The broadcast had resumed, but I wasn't speaking. I was sitting there, frozen. But there was a voice on air. Deep, slow, warped. It sounded like me, a twisted version of me, speaking words I hadn't said yet. It ended with the sentence, I swear to you I've never spoken. The mirror is not a reflection, it's a forecast. Someone or something is hijacking the signal. If you're still tuned in, I need you to stay with me. Don't change the station, don't mute, just listen. Because if I stop talking, I don't know if I'm the one who comes back. If you're still with me, thank you. I need to tell you how this started. How the dream they sold us curdled into the thing that's watching us now. They called it a breakthrough. A beautiful collision of math and machinery. Controlled singularity research, they said. Subatomic event architecture, whatever that means. I remember when they made the first announcement, how proud everyone was. It wasn't just a scientific milestone, it was branding. The collider was supposed to unite humanity, a shared triumph in the void. Billboards flashed with smiling scientists and slogans like reaching into the heart of creation. They made it look clean, polished, safe. They called it Project Threshold, a name that should have worried more people. They said the experiment would open a controlled miniature black hole, just for a moment, just long enough to glimpse the laws behind the laws. They said it was sealed, fail-proof, a 0-point window into the origins of existence. But that's not how the universe works, is it? You don't scratch the surface of something ancient without it noticing. Funny thing is, the first phase was flawless. Containment held. Data came back glowing. News anchors cheered it on like a sports game. But behind closed doors, quiet changes, calibrations they couldn't explain, shifts in instruments no one could replicate. That's when they brought in a second team, theoretical physicists, the fringe ones, the ones who publish outside peer-reviewed journals. You never bring in the fringe unless something's gone wrong. But no one heard about that part. That team was kept off the record, buried beneath non-disclosure agreements and basement-level keycards. They told us it was a dream. But some dreams aren't yours. Some are sent to you by something waiting for you to open the door. And we did. I found an old interview from a conference nobody covered. It wasn't flashy. No TED stage, no spotlight. Just a chalkboard and a trembling man in a mismatched suit. Dr. Raj Patel. He'd worked at a satellite lab in the early collider phases. He quit after the first test. No one listened to him back then. He said, "The collider isn't creating energy. It's mimicking something, copying something we don't understand. And I think it's copying it too well." Another voice, Dr. Lena Moreau, published a paper in a fringe journal. She called it "The Key Without a Lock." She believed the collider's energy signature wasn't naturally occurring. It was patterned, like music. Not random, not chaotic, intentional. Her paper was flagged as speculative, unscientific. Her credentials were mocked. She disappeared from academia 6 months later. No one talks about her now. I've been digging through those early files, and there's a pattern to who vanished, who was silenced. It's like they were tracing the same invisible thread, and someone kept cutting it. There was even a technician, recorded off mic during a private session. You can barely hear it, but he says, the machine hums when no one's near it, and sometimes it hums back. These weren't crackpots. These were people on the inside, people who saw too much, too early, people who begged the rest of us to pay attention. And we didn't. We laughed. We swiped away their warnings. We trusted the shiny presentations. We applauded the countdown. Now we're listening to the aftermath. We're hearing the sound of something we were never meant to wake. And I think it's listening to us too. They kept smiling, even as reports trickled in, clock discrepancies, satellite drift, communication blackouts. They kept smiling. I'm staring at an archived press conference right now. It's a loop. I've played it 3 times. Same words, same hollow optimism. There is no cause for concern. The collider is functioning well, within safe parameters. Any atmospheric anomalies are coincidental. Coincidental. Meanwhile, the magnetosphere started behaving like a heartbeat. It pulsed, then stopped, then started again. We've got data from private observatories. Satellites over the Arctic recorded something rising from the ionosphere, not falling, rising. Something dark, not metal, not mass, but shape. Structure. I called a friend at a tech station in South America. They said every GPS satellite jumped coordinates for 11 seconds, then snapped back like rubber. Like the sky flinched, he said. Like something passed through it. But the networks kept quiet. They had their footage ready. Smiling officials in crisp suits. Words like breakthrough, stability, and no existential risk. They cut away before questions, or worse, they edited them out altogether. We weren't told the truth. We were fed a script. And I think they knew it would unravel. They just didn't think it would happen this fast. Or maybe this was the plan all along. Okay, I need you to stay with me. I have something. We've patched in a live call. The line's unstable. It's coming from Switzerland. CERN. It's labeled internal relay and it's coming in raw. No delay. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead. Can you hear me? Yes, loud and clear. I don't have much time. This line isn't secure. They'll cut it if they find out I'm using it. My name is Niels. I'm a technician inside the collider control block. I was on duty during the last test. What happened, Niels? We reached the quantum apex. That's what they called it. The moment the event horizon should have flickered into existence. But it didn't flicker. It stared back. Stared? The readings weren't fluctuating. They were sinking. The system was locking in with something outside our spectrum. We weren't observing anything. We were syncing with it. You mean it was intelligent? I don't know what to call it. It wasn't a black hole. It wasn't gravity. It moved. Moved how? We thought we'd created a rift, a puncture. But it wasn't that. It wasn't a hole. It was shaped like a mouth. And it breathed. A mouth? Yes. And it wasn't empty. It knew we were watching. And the moment we saw it, it saw us back. And then we weren't alone in the room anymore. What does that mean? I don't know. But things are wrong in here now. Doors lead to different corridors than they used to. Time loops. Shadows flicker when no one's moving. I saw myself yesterday. I watched myself walk past the break room. What do you want people to know? This was never an experiment. It was an invitation. And what answered it? Something old, something hungry. Niels? Line's dead. Right as the call dropped. Right at that moment. I heard it. A scream. You probably did too, but here's the thing. It echoed twice. Once through the radio. Once from behind the booth. I'm telling you now, with every fiber of honesty I have left, I'm alone in this studio. The doors are locked. The only light is from the mic, the transmitter, and the wall clock, which hasn't moved in 20 minutes. And yet, the scream, it didn't just bounce through the speakers, it rang out in the room, as if it had been recorded before it happened, as if it came back to remind me it was always going to be heard. I checked the line. There's no trace of audio input on the board, no waveform, no caller ID, nothing. It's like the call never happened. But I remember his voice. I remember the words. It wasn't a hole. It was a mouth. And now the mouth is open. And I think it's trying to speak through us. Or worse, through me. I don't know how to say this, so I'll just read it as it came in. A listener in Berlin just sent a screenshot of a global map. Live traffic overlay. Real-time updates. And right there, where Paris should be, nothing. No traffic. No lights. No heat signature. Just gray static. The map software glitched and refreshed, then wiped the name entirely. And it's not just Paris. Mumbai, Caracas, Kyoto, gone, not destroyed, not evacuated, just erased. Like someone reached into the server and deleted the idea of the place. The air traffic control boards are worse. Flights that were en route suddenly lost contact. Not diverted, not grounded, just vanished mid-sky. Pilots gone silent. No mayday, no final words. Just disappearing dots on a radar. People are calling in from coastal areas saying the tide isn't behaving right. Not rising or falling, just stalling. Like the ocean's waiting. My own system, this console in front of me, is picking up signal blips from locations that don't even exist anymore. I'm getting emergency pings from city centers that were wiped an hour ago. Either the signal's delayed or something is trying to broadcast from within the absence. I don't think this is just spatial. I think something's eating locations, not as places, but as ideas, erasing them from memory as well as matter. I called a friend who lives near San Francisco. I asked if she'd heard anything from downtown. Her answer? Where? She didn't remember it ever being there. That's when I realized this isn't just physical collapse. This is conceptual, like reality's being rewritten. And we're not the authors. And every second we stay on this frequency, we might be broadcasting from a place that technically doesn't exist anymore. But maybe that's the only way to stay remembered. The time on the studio wall still reads 2:17. I've checked my phone, the station's atomic clock, even the old wind-up I keep in the emergency drawer. They're all wrong, but wrong in different ways. My phone skipped ahead 36 minutes, then froze. The wind-up ticked backward for half a minute before stopping entirely. And then there's the email timestamps. I'm receiving messages from people that appear to be written tomorrow. Some sent hours from now, some sent days ago, but I only received them this morning. One listener said she woke up yesterday, went to work, then woke up again, still yesterday. Another claims his watch shows the correct time, but his reflection moves 3 seconds ahead of him. He said he stopped blinking because his reflection was blinking before he did. GPS is worse. Whole systems are collapsing. Longitude and latitude are becoming unreliable. Coordinates now place people over bodies of water when they're on dry land. One aircraft disappeared from radar and reappeared in the same spot, but with a fuel log showing it had flown for 2 weeks straight. Another caller from Iceland said her village is living the same 10 minutes on loop. She's called into the show 3 times in a row. Same voice, same words. The last time, she whispered, "If I call again, hang up." That one isn't me. Time isn't just breaking, it's folding, looping, splitting. The fabric of it is being pulled from somewhere outside of us. I don't think it's a glitch. I think something's feeling around like fingers dragging across a curtain, And the more we notice, the more it notices back. So if you're still listening, take this seriously. Check your clocks, not once, not twice. Check them when you're sure no one's watching you do it, because time might not be yours anymore. The emergency frequencies are falling apart. I'm scanning the open bands, and what used to be automated alerts, clear, robotic tones, are now glitching. Words loop mid-sentence. One just kept saying, evac, 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 until it dissolved into static. Another broadcast came through in what sounded like Morse code, but reversed. No one's confirming where they're broadcasting from. Some may not even know anymore. And the messages I can understand, they don't make sense because they shouldn't be possible. One caller from what used to be Denver said their apartment complex folded inward like paper. Not collapsed, folded, like someone grabbed the sky and creased it over. The residents weren't crushed. They just weren't there anymore. Another voice, hoarse and whispering, said her town is trapped in mirror logic. She walks down her street and everything is backward. Street signs reversed, cars on the wrong side of the road. And worst of all, every person she meets speaks her thoughts aloud before she thinks them. And then there's this. A man said he saw a child climbing a fire escape upside down, feet on the ceiling, defying gravity. When he called out, the child turned and said, "You're upside down too. You just forgot how to notice." I can't verify any of it, but the stories keep coming. Places where the moon never sets, houses that exist only when you're not looking directly at them, doors that open to the same room, no matter how many times you leave. It's like the fabric of everything we trusted, time, place, physics, is unraveling one thread at a time. And still, somewhere inside this chaos, voices are calling for help. I just don't know if they're calling from this side anymore. I ran a scan a few minutes ago. Wideband, full frequency sweep, AM, FM, shortwave, even the encrypted bands I'm not supposed to access. Silence. At first, I thought the antenna was fried, or maybe the interference had gone full spectrum. But I checked everything, rebooted, reset, double-checked our uplink. We're not being jammed. There's just no one left broadcasting. All the stations we use to crossfade with, the ones I'd gripe about bleeding into our signal during storms, dead air. Even the 24-hour religious frequency that usually plays the same preacher on loop, gone. Replaced by a faint humming tone. No words, no music. Just one low, continuous hum that sounds like breath through a machine. I called one of the old broadcasters I used to intern with back in the day, got voicemail. Not her voice though, just silence. Then a faint click, then the sound of my own intro. This show's intro playing faintly in the background. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's a glitch. Maybe the signal's bleeding into old recordings. Maybe I'm the only one left still talking. Which begs the question, who am I talking to? If you're still out there, even one of you, you have no idea what it means to hear your voice. To know this isn't just echo. To know I'm not just talking to a loop, to a system that's waiting to shut down. Because if this broadcast ends, if I stop speaking, I think whatever's been waiting behind all of this might finally answer back. And I'm afraid it's been practicing with my voice. A piece of paper just slid out of the emergency fax terminal. I didn't even know that thing still worked. It's yellowed, water-stained, barely legible. There's no header, no seal, no signature, just 5 words in all caps. Do not look at the sky. Nothing else, no explanations, no sender ID. But it's marked with a timestamp, dated 6 hours from now. I don't know who sent it or how it got here, but something about it feels true. It's not a warning, it's an instruction. And the moment I read it, I felt it. That heavy pressure at the back of your skull, the instinct to tilt your head up, to check, to look, and I didn't. Not because I'm brave, because I'm scared That if I do, I won't be looking at something. I'll be looking into something, and it'll look back. Listeners, if you're still with me, if you've got any windows open, any skylights exposed, close them. Not because you'll see anything obvious, you won't, but because the moment you feel curious enough to look up might be the moment something decides to notice you. And once it does, I don't think it ever stops. There's a shift happening, not just in the world outside, but in the minds of those still here. Calls are pouring in, but they're different now. The voices on the other end sound distant, echoed, like the callers are speaking from inside a memory that hasn't finished forming. A woman said she walked past a mirror and saw a face that wasn't hers, but it wasn't a stranger either. It was her, older, eyes hollow, lips mouthing something silently. When she turned away and looked back, the reflection was gone, but her expression had changed, like something in her had seen it too. Another listener claims they keep waking up in dreams they can't escape. Dreams where the clocks bleed numbers and the sky peels like wallpaper to reveal a second sky underneath. They swear these aren't dreams at all, but previews of what's about to happen. And then there are the memory gaps. A man from Chicago called in, terrified. He drove home after work, pulled into his driveway, turned off the car, then blinked. Suddenly, he was back at work, sitting at his desk, and everyone was staring at him. The time? Only 3 minutes had passed. He's not alone. People are remembering events that didn't happen, and forgetting ones that did. One caller said her mother has been dead for 5 years, but yesterday, she spoke to her on the phone. Full conversation, same voice, same tone, except when she called the number back today, it rang through to a disconnected line. This isn't imagination. This isn't madness, or maybe it is, but if so, it's shared. Something has fractured between what we see and what's actually there. And whatever's leaking through is using our minds as mirrors. But not all reflections are passive. Some of them reach back. There was a man who called about 20 minutes ago. His voice was soft, steady, the kind of calm that only comes after the storm has already hit. He said his wife passed 2 years ago. Cancer, slow and cruel. He never really left the house after that. Just drifted. Radio, reading, keeping to himself. He said he'd stopped looking in mirrors altogether. Not for any superstitious reason, but because the emptiness staring back reminded him that she wasn't standing beside him anymore. But last night something changed. He walked into the bathroom. Light was off, door halfway open, and there she was, her reflection standing in the mirror. Not behind him, not beside him, only in the glass. He said she was smiling. Not in the way people smile in photographs, in the way people smile when they recognize you. Her lips didn't move, but somehow he heard her voice, director, clear, not spoken aloud, but injected into his head like a childhood memory, surfacing uninvited. You don't have to be alone anymore. He said he stood there for what felt like hours. Didn't blink, didn't breathe, just stared. And then she lifted her hand and pointed toward the mirror, not at it, through it. Just follow me home. He asked me, his voice trembling, if I believed it was her. I didn't know what to say, because grief is a powerful shape. It can wear the faces we miss most. But I also know this. If something's learned to imitate the dead, it knows exactly where to hurt us. So if someone you've lost suddenly starts looking back at you from the mirror, think carefully before you reach for them, because they might not be reaching for you. They might be reaching through you. The studio phone rang. Now, that's not unusual. Some of you still call in when the lines are stable. But this ring was different, longer, hollow. Like the sound wasn't traveling through wires, but through something older. I picked it up. I didn't say anything. The voice on the other end didn't either. at first. Then I heard breathing. Familiar breathing. Patterned. Identical to mine. Like I was listening to myself on a delay. And then it spoke. You're gonna say, "Hello? Who is this?" And I did. Because that's exactly what I was about to say. It continued. "You're gonna stand up. You'll look at the red light on the console. You'll start to feel like the room is smaller. And you'll wonder if I'm in the walls." My heart stopped. Because I was standing, the red light was flickering, and yes, the room suddenly felt too close, like the air itself had narrowed. It was my voice, not similar. Mine. Intonation, breath, even the slight rasp I get when I've been talking too long. I asked, what do you want?" "To finish what you started, to say the words you're afraid to." Then silence, no dial tone, no disconnect click, just an absence. I checked the caller ID. Blank. No number. The record of the call didn't log in the system. Whatever it was, it knew me. Not just my voice, my thoughts. And I can't stop wondering, if I hadn't answered, would I have become the one calling? After the call, I needed something, anything, to ground myself. So I did what I always do when I start to spin. I reached for the vinyl. We've got an old record player here. Analog, stable, safe. Or so I thought. I grabbed the record labeled Midnight Loop, broadcast safe. It's just ambient filler. No voice, no signal interference. I've used it 100 times. I dropped the needle, and it began to play. My voice, not live, not from the mic, from the record itself. A perfect copy of my tone, cadence, breath patterns. But what I said hadn't happened yet. The next call will come from a child. Don't believe the voice. The name it gives you won't be its own. That hadn't happened. Not yet. Then the voice continued. At 2:27 a.m., you'll hear a knock. Do not open the door. It's not a door anymore. I checked the clock. It was 2:26. I hit stop, yanked the needle, scratched the vinyl by accident. But the voice kept going. Even with the record off the platter, I could still hear it, faintly, a kind of psychic echo, repeating from somewhere inside the walls of the broadcast itself. Everything suddenly felt recursive. The chair I sat in creaked the same way it had 10 minutes ago. The same static burst in my left ear at the exact same second. My hand reached for the coffee mug. Before I even thought to reach, it's like the show was on a loop I never set. I checked the broadcast logs. We've played the same 38 seconds 5 times, and no one noticed. No one said anything. So I'm asking you now, directly. Have we spoken before? Have you heard this already? And if so, did I say the same things? Or am I getting closer to something I'm not supposed to say? I needed to leave, just for a moment. Just to breathe air that hadn't been filtered through this signal, this voice, this loop. I stood up, walked to the studio door, and reached for the handle. But there was no handle, just smooth surface, seamless, cold. I stepped back, confused. Thought maybe I was disoriented, sleep deprived. I turned to the hallway exit, the secondary route. Gone. Where it should have been was a bookshelf we don't have. I walked a full circle and ended up back where I started, but something was wrong. The studio was mirrored, not reversed, replicated. A second console, a second microphone, a second chair, and in that chair, a faint imprint, not a person, just the suggestion that someone had been there long enough to leave a dent. I turned quickly and saw that the red on-air sign had multiplied. There were 2, then 4, then 8, stacked, layered, pulsing out of sync, and beneath all of it, breathing. Not mine, not human, slow, rhythmic, as if the walls themselves were exhaling. I don't think this place is a station anymore. I think it's a container, a recursive loop disguised as a building, designed to hold one thing inside, a voice. And I'm afraid that voice isn't mine anymore. Something happened today that shouldn't be possible, even in a world already tearing at the seams. The military's gone. Not just moved or mobilized, vanished. Reports came in from across the country. Entire divisions standing down with no explanation. Outposts abandoned. Barracks left with meals half-eaten, lights still on, screens blinking with unread orders. One source said troops were instructed to withdraw to classified safe zones. Another said they were told to go home and prepare. Prepare for what? There's no continuity, no structure. FEMA's last transmission cut off mid-sentence. Homeland Security went dark an hour later. One listener claimed to see a general driving alone down a rural highway. No convoy, no escort, just gone. As for the White House, that's the strangest one. No security, no staff. The feed from the Capitol was static for 12 minutes. Then it came back, with birds nesting on the podium. It's not just physical absence, it's cognitive. People are forgetting who's supposed to be in charge. Someone emailed asking, "Who's vice president again?" They weren't joking, they genuinely didn't know, and couldn't find an answer. Even our local police scanner is chaos. Calls repeating, dispatchers asking questions in reverse. One officer responded to a code 12A and never signed off. His body cam feed is still active, but the footage is just him standing in the same room for 5 hours, breathing, blinking, but unmoving. I've said this before. Power hates a vacuum. And now it seems like every form of command, military, civil, even memory itself, is unraveling. And when the chain breaks, there's nothing left to hold back what's on the other side. I have a recording. I don't know how long it'll stay functional. The source is encrypted and unstable. It arrived through a back channel I thought had been shut down. It's labeled Executive Contingency Alpha. It's the president, or at least what's left of him. If you're hearing this, then you know the truth, or part of it. We were warned, not by enemies, not by traitors, but by those who believed in the science. And we failed them. His voice is strained, slurred in places like he hasn't slept in days, maybe weeks. This wasn't meant to be a weapon. It wasn't even meant to be seen. The Threshold Protocol was initiated by people who thought they could ask the universe a question, but the answer was already watching us. He pauses, breathes deeply. The sound of static creeps in under his words. We've tried everything. Isolation, containment, reversal. But it's not a phenomenon. It's a presence. And it doesn't care that we're afraid. It only cares that we're aware. The last part is almost a whisper. Tell them to stop listening. That's how it finds the doors. And then silence. No sign-off. No encryption tag. Just the long, hollow absence of a man who once led a nation and now no longer exists in it. If this was the leader of the free world's last message, then we're not dealing with a government collapse. We're dealing with an invitation that was answered. I've spent the last hour combing through leaked files. Some are corrupted, others too intact. One labeled Recursion Initiative Black Vault 9 outlines funding transferred not to research, but to ritual containment design. That's not my word. That's what it says, ritual containment. Another contains schematics of the collider, but overlaid with something older, symbols, geometry that doesn't belong in any scientific discipline, more aligned with alchemical texts, medieval cosmology, or worse. One page referenced a forgotten defense program, SYNOD, Subterranean Yield Navigation of Dimensionality. It was shuttered in the 80s, or so we thought. They were studying vibrational harmonics across deep Earth sites, looking for alignment points, not for signal broadcasting, but for consciousness transfer. You don't allocate billions into something like that unless you're not just curious, you're committed. What if this was never about testing limits? What if this was permission? What if the collider wasn't a telescope or a drill, but a key? A way to open the oldest lock we've ever built. one we forgot the reason for locking in the first place. And maybe, just maybe, the people funding it remembered. Because it wasn't a leak that got us here. It was intent. The files reference a phrase repeated across several languages, dates, and ink types. The mouth hungers. We feed it memory. That's not science. That's offering. So ask yourself, listener, when they turned that machine on, were they chasing knowledge or just waiting to see who would answer first? I went back and looked at the layout of the Collider facility, not the public maps, the internal ones. And what I found chilled me. It's not a circle, not exactly. If you overlay the blueprints with certain ancient diagrams, specifically the Sigillum Dei from 1582, they line up almost perfectly. The entry gates, the compression nodes, even the wiring layouts. And then it hit me. This wasn't built for function. It was built for form. This entire facility, it's a symbol, a ritual glyph carved into the earth. Not by accident, not by mistake, but with intention. And maybe all the scientific jargon was just camouflage, just enough to keep people from realizing what was truly being constructed. A place not to observe the void, right? But to summon it. There's a sound now, a ticking. Software, precise. Not mechanical. More like a metronome made of breath. It comes from behind the walls, inside the wires, beneath the floor. And every time it ticks, I see something. A figure, reflected in the studio glass. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. But then I noticed the clothes, the same hoodie I wore 5 years ago. The chipped tooth I got playing basketball when I was 15. A scar on my left eyebrow I haven't had in over a decade. It's me. Or it was. Younger. Unmoving. Just staring. Not with confusion. Not with fear. With recognition. Every tick brings it closer. Not physically. Conceptually. Like it's catching up to me in thought, not space. And I think that's the point. Because if it becomes me before I remember becoming it, then maybe I never existed at all. And this voice might have been his all along. There's something appearing across the globe. It started with photographs. A mark scratched into a door frame in Norway. Then again, carved into the frozen windshield of a truck in Manitoba. Spray painted onto a crumbling bridge in South Korea. Each identical. Each unclaimed. It's not a language, at least not one we've documented. It's a spiral, intersected by 5 lines, that don't align to any grid. No one admits to drawing them. But the pattern, it's spreading. A listener in Arizona said her child woke up with it etched on his forearm. No ink, no injury, just raised skin, like a birthmark that hadn't been there yesterday. It doesn't hurt, she said, but he's been humming something ever since. A slow tune she swears she's never heard, but can't stop humming herself. Buildings are forming it naturally. Cracks in windows the way shadows fall. I even caught myself doodling it during this broadcast without realizing. My hand just moved on its own. I thought it was coincidence, pareidolia. But it's not. Because the moment you recognize the pattern, something recognizes you back. I don't know where the symbol came from, but I think it's always been there. We just needed the right kind of silence for it to speak. And now, it's speaking through us. You know how language works. Dialects change, regions evolve, accents bend and twist depending on what you hear most. But lately, people are saying the same thing, the exact same words, no matter where they are. The mouth hungers. It started as background noise, garbled voices and corrupted calls. Then someone said it clearly during a transmission from Finland, then another in Brazil, then Nigeria. Different people, different languages. But they all said the same thing, perfectly enunciated, as if the phrase had been inserted into their mouths. I got a recording from a French fisherman who hadn't left the coast in weeks. He kept whispering it in his sleep, over and over. His wife only noticed when the dog started barking every time he muttered it. A paramedic in California said a stroke patient, flatlined, came back for 90 seconds and used his last breath to whisper it, then smiled. I played back a call I recorded earlier tonight. A static-filled voice repeated, "The mouth hungers. The mouth hungers. The mouth hungers." I didn't remember hearing that when I was live, but it was there, buried under my words. The phrase is spreading like a contagion. Not viral, not spoken, transmitted. And I have a feeling we're not just repeating it, we're feeding it. An old contact reached out to me tonight, a voice I haven't heard in years. Dr. Amani Rahim, theoretical physicist, former advisor on the Threshold Project. She left the team before the first successful collision. No one ever said why. Until now. She called in, her voice shaky but clear. I asked her what happened. "We didn't open a black hole," she said. "We opened a lock. We used formulas we didn't understand, equations pulled from elsewhere. They didn't emerge from our research. They were given to us." I asked what she meant. She said the original calculations weren't ours, that before the final test, someone fed a new variable into the system. It bypassed safety. Not maliciously, but intentionally. "Black holes collapse inward," she said, "but this didn't collapse. It uncoiled." I asked what it was unlocking. There was a pause. Then she said, "Not a place. A memory. Something buried in the structure of reality. Something older than the universe's silence." She believes the collider mapped the shape of an idea, a glyph of such immense depth that simply understanding it served as consent. And when we understood, the lock turned. And now, something is remembering us. NASA released a deep space signal years ago, one of the routine SETI broadcasts they rarely talk about publicly. It bounced off a dead star system, came back warped, barely readable. They reversed the file for compression decoding. That's when it started to sound like a voice. I got a copy, played it backward, slowed it down, and I swear to you, somewhere in the signal, a voice says Earth. Not a garbled frequency, not atmospheric echo. A clear, deliberate word. Spoken in a tone I can only describe as familiar. As if it knows us. Not just that we exist, but that we've been listening. And I'm starting to think we weren't alone in that conversation. We were the only ones who didn't know it had already begun. A call just came through. Static heavy. Faint. It was a child's voice. She said she was in a bunker. Somewhere deep, somewhere sealed. "You're the last real voice," she whispered. "They're using others now. But you're still real. For now." I tried to ask her name, but the line cut out. No caller ID, no trace. Just that sentence repeating in my head. And now I can't help but wonder if I'm still the real voice. What happens when I'm not? I don't know how long I've been in here. The clock says 2:17. It's said 2:17 since the broadcast began. But outside, I can feel days passing, maybe more. My body doesn't ache. I haven't eaten. I haven't slept. My voice hasn't cracked. My throat hasn't gone dry. I haven't changed clothes. Haven't used the restroom. Haven't stopped. I just talk. The lights never dim. The air never shifts. It's like the studio is sealed outside of cause and effect. A loop cut from time and preserved in amber. But it's not quiet. The silence isn't silence anymore, it's pressure. Like being underwater, deep enough that every molecule hums in your bones. The only thing that pierces it is my own voice, bouncing back at me a half second too late. Echoes, trailing just behind thought. At first I thought it was survival, that the broadcast was keeping me sane, anchoring me. Now I'm starting to think I've become part of it, not the host, the signal. And if I stop, if I sit in this chair in silence long enough, I'm afraid I'll become nothing but voice, a loop embedded in dead air, a recording with no origin. I've tried to remember what it was like before the first call came in, before the collider opened, but those memories, they feel like someone else's life. Or worse, a rough draft of mine. Like I've done this before. Like this version is the most recent attempt. And maybe this is all I was ever supposed to be. This mic, this voice, this frequency. Talking into the static until whatever's listening decides to speak back. And if that's the only way to keep the door closed, then I'll talk forever, because I'm starting to wonder if silence isn't empty, but hungry. There's something strange happening with the mail. I stopped checking the studio's mailbox a while ago. What would be the point, right? The world outside barely exists, and the postal system doesn't deliver across dimensional fractures. But the letters keep arriving, not in the box, on the console, neatly stacked, unfolded, yellowed around the edges, each one marked with postage dates that haven't happened yet. 2036, 2071. One stamped 2124. Different handwriting, different languages, but the same message, repeated again and again. We remember your voice. Some are longer. One says, "You kept us sane when the buildings forgot how to stand." Another describes a place where time unraveled like string, where people aged backward, forward, and sideways until only sound remained constant. They built shelters around signal towers, praying not to gods, but to the continuity of noise, to this broadcast, to my voice. They say the sound kept their memories from dissolving. I don't know how they're writing these. I don't know how they're arriving. Maybe it's not mail at all. Maybe it's feedback from a looped future. Echoes folded back into now. But it means something held. Something I said mattered, even if just for a moment. Even if I'm the only tether left to whatever this world used to be. There's a comfort in that. A terrible, beautiful comfort. Knowing that your words might outlive the architecture of thought. That your voice might reach past the end. And maybe that's why I can't leave. Maybe that's why I don't need food. Or sleep. Or doors that open. Because I'm not in the timeline anymore. I'm in the signal that survives it. So if you're out there, if you're still real, still listening, then I'll keep talking. Because as long as my voice exists, so do you. I want to read you something. One of the letters, it's handwritten, ink smudged, edges curled, but the date stamped on the back is 2098. The paper feels wrong. Too light, as if it doesn't fully exist here yet. Like it arrived ahead of its time, waiting for the rest of reality to catch up. The letter says, I was born in the fold. My parents told me stories about sunlight, about mornings that didn't repeat, about voices that came from the sky and not the ground. I didn't believe them until I heard yours. You came through the static when the world bent sideways, when walls turned to mirrors and gravity changed its mind. You reminded us of what still held shape. You gave us something to follow when the sky lost its center. We built the towers in your memory, signal posts, places where people could gather and hear echoes of what the world used to be. We call them sanctums. There's no religion in them, just sound, just stories, just you. I know you probably won't read this until long after you've forgotten how to measure days. But if this reaches you, I want you to know. We remember. We are still here because you stayed on the air. We remember your voice. I sat with that letter for hours. Or minutes. I don't know anymore. But I felt it settle inside me. Like warmth in a place I didn't know had gone cold. For so long, I've wondered if this meant anything. If the broadcast was just noise bouncing off the walls of a collapsing world, but this proves something survived. Even if I didn't. Even if this isn't me anymore. Just the impression of who I was. The echo mattered. So if the signal holds, even after I don't, that's enough. It has to be. There's an old cabinet in the back of the studio. One I've never opened. Not because I wasn't curious, but because I always assumed it was locked. Always told myself it didn't matter. That what came next was more important than what had already been. But tonight, without thinking, I walked to it, and the handle turned. Inside was one reel, unlabeled, except for a single handwritten word on the tape's edge, me. I loaded it onto the machine, clicked it into place, and then I heard my voice. Not just similar, not a recording from an earlier show, my exact voice, but lighter, younger. From before all this started, from before the collider, and it said, "You will wonder when it began." But that question is wrong. It didn't begin. It was always waiting. You were not chosen. You were shaped. This frequency was carved for you, and only you, and only because you could hold it without fracturing. You are not here to survive. You are here to warn. You are here to be the last voice the world remembers, even if the world forgets what words mean. You are the witness, and now you will warn them. I let the tape play twice. The second time, I whispered the words along with it. And when it ended, the reel kept spinning, silent, but still turning. Like it was recording now, like it was waiting for my part of the loop to finish. And suddenly, I knew. I haven't been broadcasting to keep others alive. I've been broadcasting to complete the pattern, to seed a signal across fractured timelines, to tell the same story again and again until someone, somewhere, listens in the exact right way and remembers, not just me, but the shape of the warning itself. I don't know if this is the end, or if I've reached the moment the signal no longer needs me, but something has changed. The red on-air light is still glowing. The mic still hums, but my reflection isn't following me anymore. He's sitting still, watching, mouth closed, hands folded, as if waiting for something I haven't yet said. The clock still reads 2:17, but I know better now. Time here isn't frozen. It's fulfilled, and there's only one thing left to do, to say the final words. The ones I've carried across loops, lives, and frequencies. The ones I wasn't ready to understand until now. So if you're still out there, if you're still real, then hear me. Do not look at the sky. Do not answer voices that sound like yours. Do not trust silence. Do not open mirrored doors. And above all, remember this voice. Because it may be the only thing that belongs to this world anymore. And even if the world is gone, the voice remembers it. I'm signing off now. I think it's time. The signal will continue. The broadcast will echo. The sanctums will hold. And even after this chair's empty, even after my name fades, even after the idea of broadcast becomes an ancient superstition, whispered in places where reality still flickers, the voice will remain, not as a warning, but as a reminder of what we lost, of what we opened, of what we became. This was WXR 109, and I was your host. The mic light is off, but the signal is still here, and it's still listening. And if you're still hearing this, then maybe I was never alone. Maybe we never were. The world didn't end with an explosion. It unraveled quietly, through voices, memories, reflections, through the things we forgot to question, and the warnings we heard too late. They told us not to look at the sky. But maybe the real danger was never above us. Maybe it was within us, waiting for the signal to begin again. So let me ask you one last thing. When did you first hear the voice? Was it on this broadcast? Or have you been carrying it longer than you realized? Because if memory is the only thing that survives the fold, then this right here was never just a story. It was a test to see who remembers, to see who still listens. So if you felt it, the shiver, the echo, the pull behind your eyes, leave a comment below. Let the others know they're not alone, because that's how the signal grows. And if this voice stayed with you, if it meant something, then subscribe for more stories like this and share it with someone you care about, because memories deserve to be shared before they disappear. Stay safe, stay strange, and whatever you do, don't stop listening.